Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the next installment of the AvaSure webinar series. I'm Stacy Overholt. I'm the Clinical Program Success Director, and I will be your host today. This month, you are going to hear from a panel from AvaSure's Clinical Program Success Team. The Clinical Program Success Team is your connection to program excellence and positive outcomes. The team is made up of experienced nurses with diverse backgrounds related to hospital operations, and they're dedicated to helping each of our AvaSure partners navigate towards reaching expected outcomes for your AvaSure program. So during the webinar, please feel free to type in questions in the chat, and we're going to have some time towards the end of the webinar to answer those questions. We also received some questions during your login and sign up for this webinar, and we'll try to get to those as well. Before we get started, I thought it would be fun. What's a webinar without at least one poll? So we're going to launch a poll here, and the poll is if you could answer this question: are you currently engaged with the AvaSure clinical team on a regular basis? So are you working with somebody from the AvaSure clinical team on a regular basis? Yes or no? And we'll give you just about 30 seconds to answer this, and then we'll pull the responses up. Okay, let's see. Oh, wow, we love to see that. 87% engaged. For those of you who are not engaged or have not met with our clinical team yet, you will be after this webinar. So it's very, very nice to see that. And the goal today is to have Sarah, Lindsay, Jennifer, Sue, and Julianne, all from the Clinical Program Success Team, present today on 5 keys to success that when you follow these keys to success, they will help you and lead you to a world-class patient and staff safety program. Your AvaSure program, as you know, can make a significant impact for your staff and for your patients, but it absolutely needs to be integrated into day-to-day operations. And these 5 important keys to success should be top priority for the time that you invest in managing this program. So Sarah, and you can see here, this is an overview of the keys to success. We're going to be focusing on strong program leadership, standard operations, culture change management, monitor station and hub hints, and quality performance. So I'm going to turn it over to Sarah Quiring. She is one of our clinical program specialists, and she's going to kick us off with the first key, strong program leadership. Take it away, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Stacy. Like Stacy mentioned, strong program leadership is the key to having a successful telesitter program. That usually starts first and foremost with the nurse manager or clinical lead of the monitor station, but particularly if you're monitoring in a hub and spoke environment, it's really important to have a clinical lead both at the hub and also at the spoke site to bridge any distance or communication gaps that you may have. So while it starts with a strong program leader at the monitor station, it doesn't have to end there. This is a really great opportunity to align the leadership across your organization around the telesitter goals that you have. So for example, if one of your goals is fall prevention, it's really getting everyone on board to make sure that you're selecting the appropriate patients to help you prevent falls from happening in your organization. And the way that you can start tracking and trending this is starting with some good baseline data. For example, if you have a goal of 1-to-1 sitter reduction, you may have to get a little creative here because you may not have had historical good data. So coming up with a way to track and trend this moving forward and setting incremental goals for yourself will be really important in keeping everyone on track. So once you have these goals set, make sure you're communicating them across your organization. AvaSure really recommends that you put a steering committee in place where you can share information about these goals and successes that you're having with your telesitter program and challenges that you may be having as well. So information sharing is wonderful, but don't let it stop there. Make sure you develop an accountability plan so that every leader in your organization knows what they're ultimately being held accountable to and what they can do to help your organization. So one of my favorite examples of some strong program leadership comes from Oregon Health and Science University. And they published the article, Continuous Video Monitoring, Implementation Strategies for Safe Patient Care and Identified Best Practices. And in their abstract, they noted that adoption is influenced by nurse enculturation, leader standard work, data tracking management, and patient and family feedback. And I love in this article how they address both the emotional aspect of change management and aligning people from their executive level team down to the nurses at their bedside around this change. And they also talk about the strong process that it's so important to have in place to really make that change. So mentioning process, I'm going to turn things over to Lindsay, who's going to talk a little bit more about those operations.
Thank you, Sarah, and welcome everybody. I'm going to talk about the second key to success, which is that of standard operations. I know many of you on this call may be leaders, managers, but maybe not, and you may or may not be familiar with these, but you know that standard operations on your floors and on your units are really valuable for ensuring successful outcomes. And it's the same way with the success of your AvaSure program. These standards help to increase safety and efficiencies for both the patient and the staff members. It helps to reduce errors, eliminates uncertainties, also offers clear and concise guidelines for your staff. Setting and outlining these consistent policies, algorithms, and workflows really are a pathway to achieving successful program outcomes. Those outcomes are those goals that you may or may not have set, or that you may have set on implementation, but perhaps you've added a goal or you have reevaluated what your goals are. And these could be sitter reduction, decreasing falls, increasing patient and staff satisfaction. And these standard operations truly are set up to ensure that you are achieving your goals. And that's our mission as us on this call as your clinical program specialists. Our main goal is to ensure that we are helping you remain successful and achieving your goals. We have a great deal of tools and resources that can assist you in creating those standards, creating those workflows, or editing them as time goes on. So we're always happy to help with that in the post-go live period. I will address the 4 components that are really valuable of standard operations, and those are the importance of upholding the policy, active and engaged gatekeeping, the value of a required trial, and having discharge criteria from the device established in your policy. Also, lastly, the significance of identifying a decision maker for sitter allocation, and then how these are key to achieving successful program outcomes. Upholding the policy. So you've created this wonderful policy on implementation. What do we do now? How do we ensure that this policy is in fact upheld? It's really important to know and to reevaluate the policy every so often. And also ensure that those who should be following the policy are held accountable for that. So how can we do that? Annual review of the standardized policy and workflows. We as CPSs will meet with you regularly at established cadences, hopefully at the minimum quarterly. We can talk about your policy once a year or as needed. We can take a look at your workflows if you identify there's a gap in the workflow somewhere. Also assigning annual competencies to your staff. I know some sites will assign the AvaSure e-learning modules once a year. At the minimum, these should be assigned to all your new hires or even your travelers that come through. Ensuring that all your staff know what all of the inclusion criteria is, which should be nice and broad, and then knowing what your specific exclusion criteria is in your policy. And then a really big one is reviewing your data and your ORNA data regularly. We can discuss these metrics on our quarterly calls and our monthly calls, whatever the cadence is that we meet. Many of these metrics in the ORNA database speak to how well you are doing as it relates to following your policy and adhering to your policy. You can look at the discharge reasons from the device as well as the admission reasons to see what your use cases are on average at your hospitals. Having a gatekeeper. A gatekeeper ensures that the workflows are being executed and supported. This is a person who can ensure that this policy is actually being upheld. If possible, and I know staffing prevents this sometimes with short staffing across the nation right now, but if you are able to assign a gatekeeper each shift, that would be really, really valuable to you. This gatekeeper can be the voice of AvaSure. They help drive utilization. They advocate for the program. They can push optimum use. The gatekeeper should have access to the dashboard, which is the live 24-hour rolling overview of the program. They should look at that daily. They should attend rounds if possible. They're the one who can report off on how many devices are in use and how many are available for use. They can also help your staff identify appropriate patients that we can put on devices, therefore driving that utilization. They can also use that dashboard to triage the devices. Maybe you have a wait list regularly, you're in need of expansion or more devices, but at this time you have to do some triaging. They are the person who can get on there and determine that we're actually putting the patients of highest priority on devices. Therefore, we're preventing more adverse events. More falls from happening by having these on the appropriate patients. Who can be a gatekeeper? A gatekeeper role is generally a nurse manager or a house supervisor, somebody who's well versed in the program and the policy. We at AvaSure do have a document, a piece of reference material that outlines roles and responsibilities of a gatekeeper. If you think that would be of value to you, please reach out to one of your CPSs, one of us on the call, and we'll be happy to get that to you. A required trial and discharge from the device protocol. This one is also extremely valuable. Have a 2-hour required trial built into your policy. Let's say, for instance, the nursing staff or a leader, because you've attended rounds, you've identified a patient that could benefit from the use of device, or perhaps you've heard this particular patient needs a one-to-one sitter. The nurse should have reviewed the inclusion and exclusion criteria per policy, determines that the patient is not excluded. They really should be trialed on the device for 2 hours prior to being assigned that one-to-one sitter. I will tell you that in the ORNA database, we do track the national average of patients that are unsuccessful once placed on a device. So the reason for discharge being they needed a one-to-one sitter. And that value hovers only around 11%, and that's pretty consistent. So inversely, nearly 90% of the patients that are put on device that have done that trial are actually successful. And so what determines if a patient is unsuccessful? In the policy, we recommend that you establish removal criteria, why a patient would be unsuccessful. Typically, this is something along the lines of 3 stat alarms in 30 minutes or multiple redirections, keeping that monitor tech too busy to safely monitor their other patients, their other 10 patients or 15 patients. And so that should be established for your nurses to understand, know, and be clear and concise and well. In addition to that, another important factor would be reassessing the need for the device. So if a patient is unsuccessful, educating your nurses to reevaluate them every so often to see if they can do another 2-hour trial. Just because they're unsuccessful at one point does not mean that 2 or 3 days later, the device couldn't work for them. Maybe they were on some medications at the time that they were on the device that they are now off of. Maybe they're less confused, but still a high fall risk. So reevaluating the need for the device even after an unsuccessful trial is really valuable. Also, for the patients on device, we recommend reassessing them every 4 hours or every 8 hours. And you've established that also in your policy, so that when a patient's behaviors do improve or they're not at risk for elopement anymore, that nurse is actually discharging that patient from the device. Therefore, that device is available for a patient of higher need. In turn, we are preventing falls or adverse events in higher risk patients. Again, check your ORNA data. You can monitor those reasons for discharge. And then lastly, a decision maker for sitter allocation. This is another important concept to consider. Who will be the decision maker for sitter allocation? So who in your hospital is the person who approves a one-to-one sitter, assigns a floor staff member to sit at the bedside? This point person can directly impact your utilization and your one-to-one sitter reduction, which is typically one of the goals on implementation is for sitter reduction. This decision maker could be somebody in the staffing office. Many times as a house supervisor. Keep in mind, however your hospital is aligned, it could perhaps be the same person as the gatekeeper. Generally, the decision maker for utilization and for sitter allocation has some sort of financial accountability at your hospital. And so this decision maker also should have access to the dashboard, access it daily, and uphold that required trial. This person can look at the feature in the dashboard called the event breakdown. In the event breakdown, you can see when verbal interventions happened, when stat alarms happened. So it can serve as a way to validate that the trial was in fact done and it truly was unsuccessful. And so it's really, really important for cost savings, for utilization, and for having successful outcomes. As an example, many sites also get follow-up visits where a clinical educator can come on site. And one of our main goals on follow-up visits is to identify if there is a breakdown in the workflow or in the policy or a gap in education. And I recently was able to attend a follow-up visit for one of my customers who had very high sitter costs over the last year, and they really wanted help in identifying what was the barriers to use and why maybe sitter costs had risen. And we were actually able to identify some verbiage that was misleading in the one-to-one sitter request form. The customers are now revamping that and editing that. Many people did not know low to moderate risk suicide was included. The one-to-one sitter form suggested that all SI was perhaps excluded. So we've been able to really revamp that form, and we're working towards education on all the floors. So it was really neat to see this come to fruition in person. At this time, I'll pass it on to Jennifer Williams, and she'll discuss the next key to success.
Thank you, Lindsay. That was a lot of awesome information. I will be discussing the third key to success, which is culture change management and how you can align that with your program success. So change management is, of course, an important component of any program success. But in this case, AvaSure is not just a medical device, another device that you're putting in your hospital. Success is specifically based off of program oversight, accountability, and strategy. Once a sitter, always a sitter is no longer going to be a standard in your hospital, and you're going to be utilizing the devices as an additional component to your falls program and assisting in impacting safety. So ensuring that you're utilizing education, knowledge, and understanding as a platform to initiate awareness of your change can increase the confidence of your clinical staff, boost buy-in and reduce the resistance, and of course, improve accountability. So applying a change management model in the program structuring process can assist in promoting success. And you can also continually do this throughout your program. And if you didn't use a change management model when you initially implemented, you could also incorporate change management into your current program. So ADCAR is one of the many change management models that's proven to support change with success. Using the model or this model or a similar one can help impact your program goals associated with sitter reduction, fall reduction, safety, or whatever your goals may be. The ADCAR model change of management is actually similar to what AvaSure currently utilizes in their implementation, education process, and what we provide in ongoing clinical program support to ensure ongoing awareness, create excitement for technology, and also provide adequate knowledge of the telesitter and how it can improve and impact patient safety and quality of care within your organization. AvaSure can also assist with ongoing reinforcement of this knowledge through collaborating with us as clinical program specialists. And we'll be happy to talk through any of this information with you and help you reinforce these steps in your program. So considering a change management model, we want to make sure we have a clear strategy with strong leadership support and allowing staff to understand new processes and workflows by emulating and repeating what is continually observed. So the definition of enculturation is the process whereby individuals learn a culture through experience, observation, and instruction. And this can actually be accomplished by creating and using program champions, also even utilizing your gatekeepers to assist in ensuring clear follow-through of sitter workflow expectations from the top administrative level down, while reinforcing these same standard operations previously discussed by Lindsay to ensure the success of your program. So of course, communication and collaboration will be the next components, and this should occur between all parties, and it's essential to ensure adequate and impactful decisions are made, whether you're discussing triaging from your administrator panel dashboard or you're working on process improvement initiatives to ensure that your program is successful. Standardized goals and staff accountability is also a key strategy in supporting culture change. Also, make sure you're leveraging your program data, which we'll discuss a little bit in more detail later in the presentation, but utilizing ORNA to reinforce communication regarding your program successes and improvement strategies can assist in that culture management and supporting change. Next slide. So AvaSure awareness campaign, finally considering creating excitement within your program, not only before you've implemented or even after you've implemented to just reinforce this awareness. Having a fun and lighthearted AvaSure awareness campaign can be very useful. Using key phrases that can capture the attention of your staff and bring the use of new technology and culture to the forefront of their minds is a great way to maintain goals and continuous program knowledge. So a couple of great examples that I provided is just AvaSure First, very simple, but you could also be creative with virtual is reality, think remote thoughts, and these campaign ideas can be helpful. Once staff have memorable slogans imprinted into their daily care routine, there can be open opportunity, continually refresh awareness, desire, and knowledge associated with your program. And then finally, it's going to be really important to make sure that throughout the process, you're identifying, exposing, and discrediting any misconceptions related to the program that might impact your buy-in or interest in the program. So there's a couple of things that AvaSure typically sees as misconceptions. And one of those is that the monitor staff are watching us. So it's important to reinforce and ensure the clinical staff that your monitor staff are focused on safety or sitter reduction or whatever your program goals may be, and they are program focused and not just watching staff. A second one is that telesitters are not as effective as an in-person sitter. Now, we all know it's nice to have an actual person in the room with our patient that can assist with daily tasks. But there was actually an article that was published called Telesitter Not as Effective as In-Person Sitters. And it was published in 2020. And I'm sorry, the article was Sitters as a Patient Safety Strategy to Reduce Hospital Falls. And it was found that use of in-person sitter certainty of evidence was inconsistent with very low fall prevention, while also finding that interventions that included video monitoring can not only reduce sitters, but you would not see an increase in falls. As a clinical program specialist, we're happy to assist you in working through misconceptions, navigating evidence-based resources, and supporting knowledge for your hospital teams to help you reinforce those key goals for your hospital programs. And now I'm going to hand the presentation over to Sue, who's going to discuss monitor station hubs and staffing challenge strategies.
Thank you, Jennifer. Monitor staff are a central part of your program. AvaSure recommends staffing your monitor station with dedicated staff with a background in patient care experience, such as certified nurse assistants or patient care technicians. A background with patient care experience helps those that choose to enter the medical field, because those who choose to enter the medical field usually have a patient-centric perspective that in turn can lead to customer service excellence. Having a team of dedicated monitor staff with a background in patient care is valuable when it comes to understanding the significance of keeping an eye on patients, their lines, their tubes, their drains, the terminology used, and just a basic understanding of patient conditions. Having a dedicated team at the monitor station can also assist with staffing challenges on the units. Being fully staffed at the monitor station allows the devices to be used on patients and potentially reduce your one-on-one sitter usage and allowing the floor staff to assist more patients. With a group of dedicated monitor staff, they become more proficient in identifying precursors to potential adverse events and recognizing subtle changes in patients, which allows them to potentially intervene sooner. They also become more proficient in the software and in their documentation. Monitor staff are vital in redirecting patients to keep them safe. Communication of the monitor staff to the patient is a crucial part of building trust with not only the patients, but with the bedside staff. As the staff are walking up and down the halls, they'll be able to hear those monitor staff talking to their patients, and that provides reassurance that their patients are being monitored and kept safe. Communication between the bedside staff and the monitor staff is another key aspect. The monitor staff are a significant member of the patient's care team, and it is important for bedside staff to keep them updated on any changes or information pertinent to the patient so they can monitor the patients to the best of their ability. By talking and interacting with the patients, the monitor staff can build relationships with patients, and in turn, the patients are more apt to respond to them. A recent example of this was a fall risk patient on telesitter. The monitor staff member was verbally redirecting the patient while waiting for staff to enter the room. By continuously talking to that patient, they were able to keep them distracted long enough for staff to enter and to keep the patient safe. Another example, I was just on site last week with a customer. This particular hospital uses a rounder model, and if you want more information, we can definitely help you with that. But they have a rounder along with their monitor tech. Each of them round on the patients and introduce themselves to the patients each day. One of their patients that had been on the monitor for about a week, and during her stay, the staff got to know the husband as he visited his wife every day. The monitor staff member noticed the husband acting a bit different one day, so they started talking to him and asked him to have a seat. And we're letting them know that they were concerned about him, all the while calling the bedside staff. The staff got in the room, they ended up calling a stroke code on the patient, on the husband, because it was determined that he was having a stroke. Their quick thinking, they were able to get him help quickly, and they noticed the subtle changes in his behavior because they built a relationship with him and knew that he was acting differently. And he was able to make a full recovery and was back at his wife's bedside a couple days later. All the good work, such as adverse events prevented, verbal interventions, and stat alarm response times are captured in the raw data that the clinical leads can access. The data can be used to evaluate monitor staff performances and unit performances. This information can also be used to identify areas that are doing well and assess the program for areas of opportunity. A regular cadence of meetings with your AvaSure clinical team is vital in assisting with ongoing program assessment and management. Your clinical program specialist can help with things like ideas and resources for additional use cases, discussing the rounder model, and ongoing training. Monitor staff are a vital part of the care team and are relied upon, which leads to staff and patient safety. If you are having difficulty even getting applicants to fill this role, which we hear fairly often lately, I encourage you to speak with your sales team to learn more about hosted monitoring. But together, AvaSure's clinical team can partner with your program leads and review the various data sources and help with program management. And I will now hand it over to Julianne.
Thank you, Sue. Well, I think you've been hearing a little bit of a recurring theme about goals, data, tracking, and analysis. So our fifth key is just that. As a clinical advisor, I work with you to align your key strategies into your program's safety and quality performance plan. I'll cover a few of those factors in this fifth key to help you achieve your program success, establishing your goals, processes for data tracking, data integration and analysis, and having an interprofessional oversight of your program. Our top performing hospitals have integrated telesitter into their quality and safety plans by developing a program dashboard. They actively work to improve their program's performance, tracking and analyzing their data, and creating transparency of those expectations and outcomes to achieve high reliability. Our clinical success team works with you using the program dashboard as you adopt best practices and processes to produce the results. To begin this process, we meet with you, your key executive stakeholder, nursing quality and safety, and program leads, to review your current state program infrastructure, pain points, what's going on right now in your program. Our strategy guide can be used as a quick gap analysis tool to evaluate your current state opportunities. We'll step you through developing the program dashboard with goals and metrics based on your objectives and desired key results so that you can track and trend the impact of your program on patients and staff safety, quality, experience, and cost. The program dashboard gives you the insight to make informed decisions for improvement. If your hospital has business intelligence applications such as Power BI or Tableau, we can also work with you to help automate and integrate your program dashboard to leverage your AvaSure data with your safety, quality, cost, and other internal data, and help you with comparative analysis and transparency of your program's impact. The next slide is an example of our program dashboard template that we'll send to you as a working document to develop the program dashboard. You can use it to report your results if you don't have a business intelligence application. If you do, then have a business intelligence application. The document becomes a tool to communicate to your analyst to help with building the tables for that specifically. The next slide is an example of one hospital's business intelligence application where they pull together their AvaSure data and their internal data and metrics to do comparative analysis of their telesitter program for behavioral and non-behavioral health patients. So it just gives them that nice snapshot of multiple metrics. The next slide then. So an interprofessional oversight committee is instrumental in the success of your program to evaluate and address the needs of organizational level change based on the program dashboard results so that you can achieve that high reliability. Some hospitals' oversight committees have leveraged their electronic health record clinical decision support tools like Epic, Best Practice Advisory, or Cerner's Clinical Keys. This is just an example where they've designed tools to aid their nurses in decision-making using telesitter based on the assessment and reassessment data that's entered into their EHR, which has helped to drive their utilization and improve outcomes. Your shared governance committee structure is a solid cross-organizational path for transparency to share the program data to the board and safety quality committees, all the way down to through your unit-based practice committees. Providing data to the unit level allows your unit-based shared governance leaders to work collaboratively with the monitor staff team and actively influence the care, quality, safety, and cost outcomes for their patients and themselves. And as nursing professionals, it's important for us to share what we've learned that contributes directly to patient and staff safety, quality outcomes, experience, and reduction of the cost of care. If you're interested in publishing the results of your telesitter program, our Clinical Chief Officer, Elizabeth Vertruba, is available to speak with you about the process. We highly recommend considering sharing your successes, and we would like to support you as you embark on that journey. Now I'm going to pass it back over to Stacy.
Took me a second to get myself off of mute. I was so engaged with everything you were saying. So thank you all so much for presenting today. This, obviously, as you have all heard, is the best team in the world, in my opinion, and they're here for you. When we look across our customer list, we have almost 1,000, or a little more now, I think, than 1,000 customers across the country or partners that use AvaSure for virtual care opportunities. But when we look at this list and we look at our top performing programs, meaning programs who are utilizing the system to the best of its ability and getting the outcomes that they're looking for, one of the strongest commonalities that we see is the consistent communication between this clinical team that you have just heard from and the hospital AvaSure program team. So there are many ways to engage with your AvaSure community in addition to speaking with the clinical team. So please know it's never too late to reach out, and we'll be reaching out to you as well. So look for communications and please respond to them because you'll be glad you did. And some of the things that you see listed here are going to be very helpful to you and were mentioned a little bit during the presentation. We do have a customer engagement team that will help you, and we consider ourselves a team from the AvaSure perspective by working with your sales account rep, your customer engagement representative, and then your clinical program specialist with the assistance of our clinical strategy advisors. I also wanted to take a moment to introduce a new opportunity for some needs that hospitals may have. We do have on-site visits available. And so for any needs or any work towards strategy or any assistance needed to really advance your program, there may be an opportunity for us to help you with an on-site visit. Also, be sure to use our resources to help you with research studies, case studies, join our webinars or participate in our symposiums, so on and so forth. I am going to talk about a few future events that are coming up, but before we do that, I want to open it up to any questions. We had said and mentioned that there would be some opportunity to answer questions at the end, and type your questions into the chat. A lot of the questions that are coming in are things that we've really covered and discussed. So I'm just going to reiterate a few of them, maybe ask some of the panelists in a little bit different way. But one of the common questions that we're getting right now is how do you combat low utilization? And this is a very common question. I think you heard from several of the professionals on this panel that, you know, if you have this system and you have purchased this system, utilization is that true north metric that's going to make sure that you're going to get the results, simply because if you don't utilize your devices, they are not going to be able to help you care for or keep your patients safe. And so utilization is really challenging sometimes, but I think you heard from Lindsay, and you heard from Sarah, and you heard from Julianne, that looking at data, setting goals, and providing additional education to your staff is going to be that key component. So utilization is something that we're focused on as well from AvaSure, and we want to see our customers utilizing their system to get the best return that they possibly can and the best outcomes. So I'm going to see if any of the panelists have anything additional to say about utilization, but that question came in several times. And so I don't know if Sue or Sarah or Lindsay or anybody wants to speak about that.
Hi, this is Sue. I can. One of the ways that I encourage people to increase their utilization, first look at your ORNA data and see where your use cases are, and see that will show you the different opportunities that you may have to increase your utilization, and to encourage people to think outside the box. Use the devices. If you're not using them for low to moderate risk suicide, you know, talk to your clinical program specialist. They can help you with the resources to begin that journey. If you have patients that are NPO, but you're concerned about somebody using, you know, family members bringing food or drink to them, or the patient themselves, put a device in the room. If you're concerned about behavior of visitors, put the device in the room. If you're concerned about violence of a patient, put a device in the room to keep your staff safe. So there's just many different use cases that you can do, and your clinical program specialists are definitely, we are all well versed in being able to give you some options and resources to using those devices.
Thanks, Sue. And along the lines of that, again, the common theme here is how do we get staff who are uncertain about using the telesitter comfortable with its capabilities? And I think, Jennifer, you addressed that really well when you were talking about culture change management and enculturation, and your suggestions on how to be more visible. Is there anything additional that you can think of to answer this question? And what hospitals or program leadership or program leads can do to help change that culture?
Sure, and I can just expand a little bit on what I've already said, and just ensuring, just from the beginning, and even if you didn't initiate this in the beginning, is having that top-down leadership support. So having your staff see that the administrative level portion of the organization or the C-suite is involved in what is going on with the program, and they're interested. And I think part of that is just ensuring that your staff has the knowledge needed, collaboration with the monitor staff, between the monitor staff and the clinical staff, and communication to ensure that they understand what their roles are within the program and how that they can work with each other to impact the patients the most. And then utilizing your data, again, sharing that information. And the best part about data is that there's always going to be positives associated with your data. So sharing that information with your staff, letting them know how they're contributing to your program and what they're doing to make it successful. And a lot of times that gets them excited about, we're really making change and we're really impacting our patients, and we can do more of that by engaging more in the program. So just using a combination of those things and reinforcing and reevaluating how your staff is feeling about the program is really going to help with that culture. But again, involving all aspects of your organization within the program is going to be key to that success.
Great, Jennifer, thank you. Another question that came in is there criteria for discontinuing monitoring? And I know, Lindsay, you addressed this in your discussion of standardized operations, but tell us a little bit about, maybe not just from the perspective of the trial protocol, but when a patient has been on telesitting, what should clinical staff be looking for so maybe they don't need to be on it until they leave the hospital?
Yeah, I can expand on that. The reassessment piece is really important as far as when to discharge a patient. So ensuring that your staff is actually reassessing the need for the device every 4 hours, and what are they looking for? What is the discharge criteria? Look at the patient's behavior. Are they no longer in the inclusion criteria, right? Their behaviors have improved dramatically. They're no longer restless. They're no longer confused. Maybe you were monitoring for withdrawal. They're no longer withdrawing. They're stable. They've had no alarms in the last 24 hours, no verbal interventions even, no stat alert alarms over the last couple of days of monitoring or day even of monitoring. Their appropriate behaviors have resumed. They are back to their baseline. So things such as those are discharge criteria for removing them from the device.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Lindsay. I know that there are other questions out there. I wanted to just address one last question before we close for the day. But there are several questions that ask, what other use cases can this technology be used for, and are there additional use cases that can be deployed? And I think that, my vision and my motto is think of all the things you could do to help your staff and to help your patients with audiovisual technology that is stable and robust, and really for patient safety and for suicide precautions for low to moderate risk suicide. This is a practice that has been seen and proven to be successful for years and years and years now. And so we are seeing telesitting as one of the best practices that you can implement for patient safety programs. But in addition to that, what else can you do with the system that you have? We are launching a full-blown campaign on virtual nursing care models, and are going to be supporting a virtual nursing platform. Today, we do have applications that are available to you to use in virtual nursing scenarios and care models. You could do episodic visits, or you could have clinician oversight. And there are many, many, many different ways to use the technology that you already have with some of the user-friendly applications that we offer. And we are happy to talk with you more about that, but those are some of the other ways that the telesitter, well, the AvaSure system, I should say, can be used. And it's really a hot topic right now. Almost every hospital that we talk to is talking about these types of care models because of staffing shortages and because of the strain and stress put on nursing workflows. And so just to have a centralized operation to assist with that and support with that, there are a number of ways that can be done. And so we'll certainly be available to help you with that as well. There are a few other questions, but we will get to those as we answer. We have a list of those questions, and so we'll be able to answer those questions via email. So you should be able, you should receive some questions, or some answers, I should say, to your questions. And before we close, I wanted to share all with you what is coming up in our future. We are next week sponsoring and participating at the Becker's Health IT conference on Navy Pier in Chicago. So if you happen to be going to that, stop by. And excitingly, we are going to be at the Magnet Conference. We are there every year. This is one of our favorite conferences to go to. Lots of energy, lots of enthusiasm and innovation at the Magnet Conference. We'll be at booth 24, 25, and we hope that if you are attending the Magnet Conference, you will stop by. Our booth is really cool. If you haven't seen it, you'll wanna come visit and see it. We'll have 7 or 8 of our employees there representing AvaSure, and we'll have all of our products on display, so you'll be able to see even the virtual nursing applications that we have available to you that are working today. And then in November, early November, Sarah up here on our panel is going to be attending with a team the Canadian Injury Prevention Conference. This is really exciting for us as we expand into the international realm and have some hospitals from Canada are using our system and starting to grow our business there as well. And then lastly, last but not least, don't forget about our symposium. We host a symposium annually. This will be our 5th or 6th symposium. Sorry, I don't know, but it's October 26th and 27th. It will be hosted virtually. And to register, if you get emails from any one of us, we all have on our email signature, we'll have a way to register. You can go to avasure.com to register and click on virtual symposium registration. It is 2 days full of customer stories, learning from customers, and interacting in a virtual way. And we really look forward to seeing you all there. I believe we are at time, a little over 4 minutes over now, but we so appreciate you attending this webinar. We look forward to engaging with all of you and speaking with all of you. If you have any questions, again, don't hesitate to reach out. Your clinical program specialists and my clinical program success team will be at the ready to continue with our partnership with you. Thank you and have a great rest of your day.